G'day folks, welcome to another edition of the Blind Test Drive, and today what I'm going to do is show you a few of the things that we've done to make our caravan easier for us to use as a blind couple. I'm not going to do a full tour of the van because at the end of the day it's a 2010 Jayco Discovery, 16.5 feet. It doesn't have a shower and toilet, it's a pop top. So there's nothing really intrinsically interesting about that. But I wanted to show you some of the sort of modifications and talk about some of the modifications that we've done, as I said, to make it easier for us to use. The first one is this thing. This is a Ground Dog tent peg. Now, all of these products that I'm going to mention today, we're not sponsored by any of them. You know, at this point in time as I make this, we don't even have any subscribers, so what would be the point? So I'm sharing this purely for information purposes only, okay? So this is a Ground Dog tent peg. We use these for putting in our awning legs and holding down our annex. It's got quite a coarse thread on it, which hopefully you can see, and it has a 19mm socket on the top here. So that means that I can put the tent pegs in with a cordless drill with a 19mm socket on it, rather than trying to hammer tent pegs in and bashing my fingers. It's just one of those things that I've never kind of learnt to do terribly well without working eyes. So this is a nice safe way to do it, and they hang on really tightly. We've had this set up in some really tight winds. We normally put 2 on each of the awning legs, and then we have an awning out the front, which you'll see in a moment when we go for a walk. And we also peg down the annex walls to stop them flapping. So we've got about 15 or 16 of those that we use in different spots around the setup, particularly when we're here for a long time. And Pottsville, where we're camped at the moment, the weather can be a little bit unpredictable. It's a lovely day today, but yesterday it absolutely poured down, and we do sometimes get some strong winds here. So that's that one. The other one I won't show you, but I'll just briefly mention, is having systems that you can monitor using a smartphone. And the reason for that is that most smartphones, whether be they Android or Apple, come with a built-in screen reader called VoiceOver, which speaks what is on the screen. On an Android phone it's TalkBack, on an Apple phone it's VoiceOver. What that means for me, for example, is that I can monitor our battery status. We've got a Victron shunt attached to our iTech World lithium battery, so I can monitor not only how much charge I have, but how much our various things are drawing, so the lights, the fridges, that kind of thing. We also have 2 smaller fridges that we take with us. One is a 75-litre Dual Zone Kick-Ass brand, and that has an app that goes with it, which I can connect to the fridge via Bluetooth. I can set the temperatures independently of the 2 bins, and I can make sure everything's running and that everything's at the right temperature. I've also got a little 18-litre Brass Monkey that I use for just as basically like a portable esky. It has its own little lithium battery, a bit like an electric drill battery, and it can run on 12 and 240 volt, but I can monitor the charge on that as well, so that I know where I'm at all times, and I know if there's any kind of electrical problem. I have got some alarms set up on the shunt so that if the battery goes too low, it will in theory beep at me and send a message to the phone, but it is handy to be able to check that at any time. For me, having something that has a sort of a visual display on it is not overly useful, because I then have to try and read it with the phone's camera, whereas if I have something that the phone can talk directly to, I enable my VoiceOver screen reader on my iPhone and I know exactly where everything is at. Right, let's go and take a bit of a walk around, and I'll show you some of the other gadgets and bits and pieces that we've got here. Okay, so we're at the front of the van at the moment, and there's a couple of things here that I want to show you. The first thing is our Cobb gas grill. So if you haven't seen one of these before, they come in a couple of different forms. This is the gas version. There is another version that operates on what they call cobblestones, which are a round disc made out of pressed coconut. This one has a single gas burner, which is here, and it runs on these little butane screw-on gas cylinders, and we can get around about 2.5 weeks out of one of these. Now, they call this thing a kitchen in a bag, And the reason for that is that there's a bunch of different attachments that you can get for it. So if I take the lid off, for the folks that are blind that are watching, the unit is circular. It has a mesh outside which is all Cool Touch. You then have a pot in the middle of that, which has sort of a raised section in the middle where the burner sits, and that area sort of between the side of the pot here and this raised section here they call a moat. And you can actually do things like put your roast potatoes in here wrapped in foil. You can put some liquid in if you're doing a roast, like some wine and herbs and things to infuse your roast. There's you can get a grill plate to go on the top if you're doing steaks. You can get a fry pan that goes on like this. Great for doing your breakfasts, your fried eggs, bacon, that kind of thing. And you can also get this one, which is like a deep dish, like a wok type configuration. And then our lid simply goes on the top, depending on which attachment we're using. You can also get a roasting rack, a bread tin, all sorts of different gadgets. You can get it like a griddle, so if you're doing burgers, it puts the nice ridges on them, that sort of thing. And that's our lid that goes on top like that. Very easy to light. It's just got one control down here for your gas and a press button type ignition. So that's really handy because it means we've got a number of sort of cooking appliances in one. If we're going to do something bigger than that, I've got my Weber BBQ here, the Weber 1200, but I've got this mounted on a thing called a barbecue arm, which is a metal table that attaches around the side of the drawbar here to the jockey wheel post, and we can then pivot this around depending on what we want to do, which way we want to face. If there's wind blowing in, I can turn it around like this and so on. So that's really handy as well. Just makes life a little bit easier, gives us a little bit of flexibility, and when we don't want it, we can just push it out of the way. Okay, coming around to the side of the van now, and this is something which we weren't really sure about, but it's definitely been worthwhile, and that is our Camec remote van mover. So the way this works, you'll see that there's a roller here, and we have a bolt over on this side that we can attach a handle to. Again, it's a 19mm socket, and that winds these rollers here against the tyre of the van, and there's one on each side, but you've wind in one and it winds both sides in. You can then just move the van around with a remote control. You can drive it around like a giant 16-foot remote control car. The beauty of that is that because we only have one set of eyes, and that's usually either Dan or Jim, whoever's doing the towing for us, we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to maneuver the van, because in a normal situation, if Marion and I could both see, one of us would do the maneuvering and the other would do some directing using hand signals that are impossible to understand. That's usually what happens anyway, from what I've seen watching other couples. Whereas this way, if it's a bit awkward, we just unhook the van and we can move it around. Also, it's moves slowly enough that if I want to move it myself, I can do it, and I can just walk beside the van. It sort of goes at walking pace, so if I just need to jockey it one way or the other because it's not quite positioned straight and we can't get the awning legs pegged down or something like that, it's very easy for me to just move it with the remote. The remote also has the ability to turn the two motors in different directions, so you can have one wheel going forwards and one going backwards, and what that does on a single axle van like this one is it just spins the van on the spot virtually, so very, very easy to maneuver. Coming around to the back of the van now, and up here we have our Safety Dave reversing camera, and again, that's one of those things that we installed to make it easier for Jim and Dan when they're maneuvering the van for us. We've got it set up, we have a dual channel monitor on the car, and so we have one camera down next to the tow ball, so you can see where the tow ball of the van is when you're reversing up to it to hook up, but then we can using a flexible cable that sits on the drawbar, we can connect this camera on the back of the van as well, and it means that when we're going along, it's not tied like a lot of reverse cameras are sort of tied to the gear selector, so they only come on when the car is in reverse. This one doesn't. This one is on pretty much whenever you turn the monitor on the dash, and that means that the person driving can not only see when they're reversing the van into a tight spot, but they can also see what's happening behind the van, so they know, for example, if it's clear to change lanes. So it really works in conjunction with our towing mirrors to give much better visibility of what's at the back of the van. So these things, you know, it's the old story, you don't know you need them until you do. And we sort of wondered at the time whether they were things that we needed, but we've definitely found all of these things really handy. And you know, it's designed to make it as easy as possible, not only for us but for the person that helps us, because at the end of the day we don't want it being stressful for them. We want it to be, you know, a pleasant experience to work with us. So, and we also don't want any damage to the van or the car or anything else. So, yes, we do own our own car as a blind couple. We've got a 2012 Mitsubishi Challenger, which we use as a tow rig. What we might do in the next video, I'll sort of show you the setup with the camera, and I might also try and get Jim to demonstrate the van mover for you, just to so you can see how that works. But that gives you a little bit of an idea anyway of some of the things that we've done to make our setup work a little better for us. Hope you've found this useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.